So over the last 2 years, Hasbro has released a bunch of retools turning mostly the Siege molds, but a few others into their IDW versions, and I picked up all of them, and some other stuff too. So, welcome to the Repaints Palooza 4, the IDWening. Well, actually, it's more like the Retools Palooza, so even better. And people have been hounding me for another one of these for over a year. But this one actually took me roughly as long as I thought the second one was going to take me to scrounge everything together. Getting a bunch of repaints and retools of specific figures is kind of hard to do on short notice, especially when you're picking them up as they come out. And I want to start off by saying a huge thank you to my longtime patron, Jotun. He sent me one of these sets that I'm about to cover literally years ago, and I'm only just getting around to them this episode. Man, I am sorry it's taken so long. The backlog was intense. But finally, it's time to get into this. And let's start with the one of these that I already covered in a different Repaints Palooza, Velocitron Speedia Blur. You know, I never considered the possibility that I'd feature a character twice in one of these episodes, especially not this dude who was the first and for a long while only IDW retool. And it was a pretty good start with a pretty bad mold. The 86 Blur is just the vastly worse version of the Titan's Return figure, so it's a good thing that this is by far the best this version of the mold has ever looked, largely thanks to the fact that IDW had one of the coolest vibes in the whole franchise, and that Blur had one of its coolest designs in there as well. However, as always, the proportions here are very goofy. If the name Brawn wasn't already taken, I'd swear that's what this should be called, because this dude did not skip leg day. That would imply that leg day was ever on the schedule for him at all, and going by those sad pencils attached to his pelvis, that just wasn't on the menu. Transformation is okay, but the alt mode is just bad. It's a non-hover card that is absolutely hovering. It's like a water foil, but for the street. I wonder how many Cybertronians just aren't allowed to transform back on Cybertron because their alt modes would damage the roads. Now thanks again to Jotun for sending me the first of the 2 packs for this subline, Orion Pax and Senator Shockwave. That's right, Shockwave, the blue senator, who also has a face. Honestly, Shockwave is like the most important character in all of IDW, and the places his story goes are wild. But yes, at the start of it all, he was a good guy, and a normal looking guy, before he had his head cut off and replaced with a blinky light. And this is a Siege Starscream retool, so you know it's gotta be decent at least. Though this is a downgrade for sure, unfortunately. The new chest piece is a bit too puffy, so it looks a little bad on its own, but it also concentrates his torso mass in a way that clearly defines the separation of it and his legs, making the legs look longer than they do on the Starscream. Also, with the new heftier backpack chunks, he's a bit more unbalanced than his father mold. So while the Supreme posability remains the same, you'll find him a lot harder to place in some of the more dynamic stances. If you liked the Siege sculpting, however, there is even more of it than ever, so that's pretty good. It's funny just how wrong this head feels though. Not because it's a bad rendition of the comic sculpt, but because it feels like Shockwave just shouldn't have been pretty before he had his Empurata. Pretty boy Professor Xavier is a weird combination. Despite the big changes, the transformation isn't really noticeably different, save for the fact that you now have to contend with the little weenie bits coming off of his shoulders. And look, this alt mode is seriously a compromise. This was never supposed to be what he turns into. It was what Starscream turned into, as a toy and theoretically in a TV show that we don't talk about. And because this is a retool, it turns into the thing that the toy turned into, with some bulbous thrusters added onto it. This isn't cool, it doesn't really feel right, and I'm still not mad at it. It's just that this is the only thing it could have been. It's not like there's been a plethora of Cybertronian jets that have come out in recent years, and you can really only do so much to try and distinguish this. It's just Starscream but uglier. Honestly, this maybe fits a pre-war Starscream in general better than it does Shockwave. Not bad, but the weaker of the two in the box. Speaking of, let's move away from the blue guys, well, the 100% blue guys, and talk about the blue and red guy, Orion Pax. There was a weird point in the comic where I'm fairly certain writers and artists weren't talking to each other, and we wound up with this design. And I will say that one thing I absolutely love about it is that Optimus absolutely hated having a face in it. Like, apparently this was supposed to be some kind of powered up form? Right. And to give him this mode, they took away his faceplate for some reason, and he just wanted it back. And that's so endearing because I too want Optimus to always have his faceplate. This is a Siege Hound retool, and yeah, I really couldn't see this being anything else. And I love how this version of the character has been made with retools twice, and both of them have wound up with legs transforming the same way. The sculpt is interesting because they very blatantly tried to make this look like his later, though technically earlier, far more popular form. Look, the timeline is kind of confusing here. But yeah, he's got like the individual window boobs and the set of chevrons running down his center. Those are not supposed to be present on this design at all. So they've taken a very strange set of liberties, and I kind of get it. And it's possible that they thought that they weren't going to get a chance to do the other better version of him from the comics, so they didn't want to leave people completely high and dry with nothing to represent him, but I still think that they shouldn't have done this. This comes with Hound's honestly really cool gun and this weird-ass axe that works well, but I honestly kind of hate. Like, the head is reversible, and I don't know which way it should go on because they both look wrong. Wait. The transformation for Hound has always been super sick, so no surprises, this is definitely the most fun transformation so far. But the alt mode is oof, it's just oof. Like, it's not a bad one at all, it's just also not at all the one that this version of the dude is supposed to have. I mean, it's a vehicle with 4 wheels, and those are really the only similarities that you can say. It's not even meant for the same type of terrain. Maybe this is why they changed the robot design, because if they kept it the way it was, it couldn't have turned into any kind of sensical vehicle at all, given that it would have like an observation deck in the engine compartment. This is a good figure, and the set overall is good, but I find it to be a far worse value than its companion set, as the figures are both way less accurate, and it's a Voyager and a Deluxe, rather than the 2 Voyagers like the Megatron and Senator Ratbat set. The Megatron is just the Siege Megatron again, in a nice new dark deco, with some caution stripes and a bit smoother sculpting, as well as with some new accessories in place of the old ones. I really like the way this looks, but unfortunately, I don't like the way this feels. Mine's got one of the most frustrating QC issues I've ever seen, where the knees don't don't want to completely straighten, so he leans back no matter what you do and is always threatening to fall over. You can undo the heels to help with that a bit, but still, that's a bummer. Otherwise, there's not much of a change. Though, as with the rest of the look, I do love the new head, even if it kind of sabotages itself, as this is the far less threatening, yet to turn evil Megatron. But this new face looks like what if Beast Wars Megatron had a BDSM dungeon in his basement that he keeps around only to torture his enemies. Transformation is the same, but also worse now that it has new parts forming pieces rather than the fusion cannon, making it just a bit harder to set up, and also the alt mode just doesn't really look complete. That's not a thing. That's not anything. How is this supposed to drill mounted on top of those tracks like that? Even with this thing's faults, I will say that the design suits the mold more than the Seed version ever did. I do like it. Then Ratbad is bringing the drip. God damn, does that boy look cool. Unlike any of the other figures that I've covered so far, I don't think that I have a single negative thing to say about the use of this mold. I like this thing better than I do the MMC version of the character. This gleams with the purple, the slick black and gold just punching up the accents, and honestly the whole build and vibe fits him. The only thing that I can muster as a complaint for it is the face, as the eyes look kind of tired more than they do sinister. But that's not a problem with the sculpt, that's just the characterization in it, as the rest of this head rocks. It's kind of got some Megazord or Voltron vibes with the way that the head is getting spit out of a mecha cat's mouth. And I still like the transformation in alt mode for this. It has some slight alterations that I think make it even more cohesive than ever, and rather than a space surfboard, now it looks like a space yacht, and I think that fits the character super well. I'd say that this is the first absolute winner of all of these. And moving on to the next guy, I did not plan to drop a review of this thing so close to Thew, but sometimes life just be that way. But Nova Prime, out of the Siege Galaxy Prime, kinda rocks. The original version of the Siege Galaxy Prime was one of the only figures I ever found myself not liking so much that I returned it. It was fat and awkward, and it didn't really feel like the guy. But here, the white is very slimming. He feels more like a bruiser, and less like a 50-year-old dude whose metabolism has taken a shit. He looks tough and mean. His deco rules. The white screeches through the darkness of his home, the dead universe. The gold gleams. I especially love this framing around the grill abs, and the sculpting that is unique to him really makes this all tie together. This is how you do evil Optimus. Not that black shit that doesn't actually have a personality, not that purple shit that's not changing enough. This regal, indulgent, narcissistic shit. This screams evil Optimus, even if it isn't actually supposed to be a version of Optimus. And the Optimus head with the horns is just inspired. Turning his ear antenna into a subtly hostile protrusion is genius, and there's just something so pompous about this design. Transformation still sucks, but that's not this thing's fault, and I like the alt mode. The more closed off nature of it as opposed to the original also makes him feel more villainous, like some royal walking through a crowd of peasants so he pulls his cloak tight around himself. How has there never been like a DLC or a sequel to Transformers Devastation that finally gets into this guy? Hasbro, you are sitting on free money, just make it happen already. And then we go from Nova Prime to Nova Prime. I am sorry, I don't remember which one of my fans sold this to me. I really wish I could so that way I could give you a shout out right now. But this is the even sicker, way less accessible version of Nova. Yes indeed, this is the third-party upgrade kit to the Combiner Wars Optimus, and just damn does this go hard. It's so big and imposing. The wings both carry gravitas and horror, like skeletal fingers reaching out. Infinitely more posable than the official figure of this dude. I will say that despite the giant feet, this guy is a lot more back-heavy and harder to stand, as all the tolerances are in general worse, plus the paint isn't quite as good as on the other guy, especially noticeable in the face, and while the eyes look great, the faceplate pops way less. But in a way that's almost a good thing. Almost like two stages of this guy. The official for the cruel leader of Cybertron before he left the planet, and the upgrade kit for the powered-up emissary of death he becomes. Complete with gigantic falchion that can also become a sick-ass laser scythe. I'll be honest, I have never transformed this thing for fear of breaking it, given how rare this set is, and I plan to never do so still, especially since I can't even do the combined mode with this thing, since it doesn't have the combined mode head. I don't remember if I just lost this piece at some point because I'm an idiot, or if that part never came with it. Whoever you were who sold me this, thank you so much. I do love it. Please DM me through Twitter or Discord or wherever you can actually get my attention because it's not good to go through email. I want to both remember you and thank you better. Then we have the Transformers Javelin and Cascade 2-pack, and I'm going to talk about the figure that people care about way less first. I don't hate the Power of the Prime's Moonracer mold, and I don't hate the Siege Chromia mold even less. People's problem with it really just seems to be the fact that it's got a big backpack, but I'll be honest, I've seen way bigger and I have seen way uglier. My biggest issue with this thing is just how much the accessories like to fall off, but otherwise I've always enjoyed this mold, which I suppose is really important because outside of the Megatron, this is the least retooled of all of these figures. It's mostly just the head that's been changed here. It's accurate for sure, but I never got much of a sense of her character in the comic. I think she's supposed to be like a common collected sniper who was in over their heads. But this dome makes me think more mad scientist. Transformation is the same as ever, alt mode is the same as ever, except for the fact that the window is now painted purple. If you didn't like this mold, you're not gonna like it now. Now we have to talk about the fact that the Transformers Bumblebee RC mold fucking hates me, because Javelin is based on her, and Javelin, quite frankly, has the worst QC I have ever seen. And for comparison, my Bumblebee movie RC had one of her arms plastic fused to itself so it couldn't articulate, and trying to move it just caused it to break. Even compared to that, however, this figure is a shit show. And that sucks, because both times I really wanted to love this mold. Just about the only joints on this thing that are tight are the hips. This bitch is loose like Jessica Rabbit. Okay, that was a sex joke, but it wasn't like the grossest sex joke. It just meant like Jessica Rabbit gets around, even if she does love Roger. The chest doesn't hold to the back frame. The back frame doesn't hold itself up. One foot is so loose that just holding the figure in the air without jiggling it or moving it or anything causes it to rotate off to the side. It's a pain in the ass to try and set this thing down because the foot never wants to be under her. And that sucks so bad because I wanted to love this figure. Javelin rocked in IDW 2.0, a hard case female Autobot SWAT team member with a sick ass design. And this does so much work to capture it with all the retooling and the killer deco. Why is this figure so cursed for me? It's supposed to pose great, it's supposed to transform great, but you touch any part of her and she just slobs out of your hands like a corpse. I 100% see myself recommending this set if this isn't like a common issue. I suggest doing some research to find out whether or not it is one, so that way you know if you want one. If this is a normal problem, however, stay away. You don't want to deal with QC this heartbreaking. Then you've got the Fractured Friendship 2-pack. So let's talk about the Megatron first. While this is just a repaint of the darker colors Megatron, I think that this is the best version of this mold that we've ever gotten. I liked the colors on the other one, I liked the caution stripes, but for one, this doesn't have the QC issues in the knees, so he has no trouble standing, but I also love how this is Megatron in his transitionary period, where he was definitely turning evil but hadn't quite gotten there yet, and this is just his edgelord phase. The proportions have never worked better for the Siege Megatron than they do here now. The red flanks give me life, and the head makes way more sense on Vicious Gladiator than sensitive idealist political writer Young Megatron. Transformation is the same as ever, and the alt mode is the same, which is fine because this is already the best version of this Megatron ever, and it's also coming in a box with badass action hero Cop Orion packs. Just absolutely one of the baddest designs that Optimus has ever had. A little wide here, and when I first showed this to my brother, his immediate reaction was to do this and start uncontrollably laughing, getting an in between his giggles. And there are a lot of shenanigans that you can do with these shoulders. But anyways, if you don't count the upgrade kit, this is by far the best and biggest retool of the group, doing a supreme complete conversion of the Gamer Edition Optimus that actually manages to make the figure bigger than ever. And now, without going through third party, people have a really solid way to pick up this awesome version of this character. Everything about this mold rules. From the head sculpt, which both manages to nail the design from the comic, while also managing to wrangle it more in line with the common notion of Optimus, as the best shot of him from the comics had a really off-model head sculpt that people kind of treat as the definitive version of it. To the articulation, which is just excellent for a normal Chug figure. To the transformation, which is brilliant, fun, and significantly improved over the Gamer Edition now that it has the foot flaps that cover the fists. To the alt mode, which basically looks perfect. Like, there is very little to compare this to, but it nails what we do see of it. Love this figure, and absolutely this is a must-buy set. Lastly, IDW Cyclonus. This is not official. There is a guy on eBay selling IDW Cyclonus heads, and I bought one. Then I found that it just looks completely wrong with the dark purple sitting on the Lavender Kingdom Cyclonus' shoulders, so I wound up buying a Toy Colors one to complete it. And yeah, I couldn't be much happier with this. Well, I mean, outside of the materials, because while this looks great, it feels terrible. The original Cyclonus is one of the most hand-candy figures of all time, while this is loose and weak, and it just feels unpleasant in your hands. But you can't bring it down too much, because Cyclonus is just one of the best official Hasbro figures of all time. However, I do think I have enough versions of this dude at this point. Though I have been saying that since the first Siege Megatron, and, well, I've got like 10 copies of him. This head adds such a presence to the character, and it looks so much better than the original awful Glenn Clonus head. Though I will say that there are some minor issues here. While this is mostly immaculately painted, for some reason it's missing the darker inner cheeks and the line work around the eyes. And the lips are poutier than they should be. But still, this is an excellent version of this head, and even though the rest of the design doesn't look like him, it is close enough. Transformation still works and is still awesome, so if you're willing to spend like 50 or more bucks to get an IDW Cyclonus, I advise buying the head if you can find it and getting a body for it. And if you already have a body, find one of these heads, man. It is totally worth it. Though kind of hard to fit on, it takes some force to put it on the ball joint. And if it were not for QC, I would absolutely recommend every last one of these. Every set is really cool in its own right, and none of them are doing it badly. The worst might be the Blur, since the alt mode is such a nothing burger, and the proportions are so whack, and obviously the best by far is the Fractured Friendship 2-pack, but every last one of these I'm proud to have in my collection. Big recommendations on all of them, except for the Javelin because of the QC, but if that's not a common issue, then it's across the board. Love all of these to death. And before we go, let's thank a channel backer. And this time it's Drone Arrow Gaming with DX9 Gewalt. And I honestly don't know why I've never picked one up. It looks great and cool and tough and brawny, and the alt modes look both like they are supposed to, and it doesn't even do the one thing that I hate that almost all Blitzwings do, where they had that step down in the cockpit. I'm actually legitimately confused why I've not grabbed one of these yet. I need an MP Blitzwing. Thanks for putting this on the wheel, because I might just buy one now. And it's time for the monthly shoutouts. A reminder, right now I'm just doing birthday shoutouts and other well wishes for a while. If like no one requests a shoutout like what happened with this month, then I'll fit in some other types, but that's just because this would be like 2 seconds long if I didn't. So first up, happy birthday to MC73 on the 16th. It is wild to me that I have two fans both called MC, and both are some of the most dedicated ones that I have. The MC of the 7-3 variety wishes to take the title of my #1 fan. I do think that Diego Leon has long since relinquished his claim to it, but that doesn't mean that the crown automatically becomes yours. I'm so proud of how much you like my stuff though. MrJazzyDriftor's Instagram account got banned, and he wants you all to know that he didn't abandon it, it was just out of his control. So he's posting his collection pics to Twitter now, and he's made a new duplicate Instagram account. Lastly, Pablo wants you to check out his friend, the Blaze 1907's pretty impressive Roblox Transformers multiplayer game, Transformers Shutdown. Maybe you should rebrand that to Deactivate, given the death of the other other Transformers game. If you like Roblox, then check it out. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.